So you like being out and about with your camera, taking great pictures, taking great videos, making great art, and you want to have a way to document your adventures and your craft. You want to start making POV photography videos or videography, depending on what you do. I do photography. That's a great idea. A bunch of people are posting videos like this on social media right now. There's a bunch of really talented photographers showing off their work in a way that is super immersive and interesting. And there's me as well. I've been making POV photography videos for a few months now. Of course I posted some of them here on the channel, but I have a lot more footage that I've never shown anybody. So that's why I decided to make this video right here, to share some of that unreleased footage with you guys, but also to share some of my favorite moments from the videos I have posted, and to talk you through how I made those videos and what I've learned. So in case you guys want to start doing POV photography content as well, hopefully you can kind of use this video to get going and to avoid making some of the mistakes I've made. Let's go. And if you like what you're seeing, you can subscribe to the channel, you can watch those other videos, and you can stay tuned for some cool shoots I've planned. So I want to talk about where to mount your camera, what settings I like to use, because a bunch of people have been asking me in my comments, so I thought I might as well make a video about it, and just some general tips how you can get the most out of your POV photography footage. I'm going to be talking about all of this from the perspective of using the DJI Osmo Nano, which is the camera I've been using for my POV photography videos since October, and I've been really happy with it. It worked great for me, and if you like what you're seeing on this channel, this is the camera that can give you those same results. But I can't tell you for sure that this is the best camera to get for POV videos, because this is the only action cam like this that I've ever used for that purpose. Before this I was using my smartphone, so I don't really have any other action cams to compare this to. There's a bunch of similar cameras by DJI, there's very similar cameras by other manufacturers, and I haven't compared any of those because this is the only one I've used, but it worked great for me, so take that as you will. This camera does have some unique advantages, mainly the fact that there is a detachable vision dock which I can use to check my footage and to check my framing while filming, and the fact that the camera itself is magnetic, so it will stick to magnetic surfaces like this, and that makes it a lot easier to mount. We're going to talk about where to mount the camera, and all of what I'm talking about is going to work no matter which camera and which model you use, but you might need some additional screws or straps or mounts or stuff like that if you don't have a camera that has a magnet built into the camera itself. Okay, let's start talking about where to mount your camera, and I'm gonna start us off with my favorite way to mount the DJI Osmo Nano, which is on my head using the magnetic headband, or alternatively you can also use this clip to clip onto a head like this and then film like this. So in all of the videos you're going to see on my channel so far, I've been using the magnetic headband because it's been winter, and a hat like this you don't really need to wear in winter because there's no sun anyways, and it's also just too cold to wear in winter. I want to wear a proper winter hat and then use the magnetic headband to mount my camera, but in summer I think I'm going to use this more because I wear this hat in summer anyways. The camera will now film everything you tilt your head towards. I like using this setup because you can see the movement of my head, which results in the most immersive and visually interesting videos. It's almost going to feel like you're actually right there with me. I think this is as true of a POV video as you're going to get, and it's going to make for the best content. I'm going to show you some footage of me walking over this kind of sketchy suspension bridge to get some pictures of this castle. Bokeh, for those of you who want to know, is the location I'm photographing here. I think it's just so immersive with the camera mounted on my head. It's actually going to feel like you're along for the adventure. I think this setup is going to result in the best content, and I strive to use it as often as possible. But there are some downsides. For one, the DJI Osmo Nano is not a heavy camera, but when wearing it on your head, you still are going to feel that there's something there that isn't supposed to be there. It's not bad, but it's noticeable. Your head is a bit off balance, it's a bit heavier than usual. You are going to feel it. And next off, when using the headband, be careful not to cover the lens on accident. If you have a hairstyle like mine, where it's a mess and just hanging in your face kind of, your hair might appear in your footage, so be careful that that doesn't happen. For me personally, when I'm using the DJI Osmo Nano on my head, I always am wearing a hat either with the head clip or wearing a hat below the headband to make sure all of my hair is covered up and doesn't enter the shot on accident. But most importantly, you are going to look kind of goofy, I'm not gonna lie. The camera is of course going to be very visible, and it's going to look kind of strange to other people. So as I said, I try using the setup as much as possible, but when I'm around a lot of people, like when I'm shooting in a city, doing street photography or something like that, I don't really like it. I don't know about you guys, but I would rather die than have people know that I'm trying to record a YouTube video. There's truly nothing more embarrassing than being caught trying to make something genuine and good. Cringe. So let's go to the most sneaky setup for all of you stealthy street photographers. And that's what I like to use when shooting around a lot of other people as well. Using this magnetic necklace, you wear it under your clothing like this, and I usually try to wear it fairly high up, so right now it's sitting here. I might even have it a little bit higher, around this height on my body. This is where the necklace is sitting right now, and now I can just clip the camera on like this and I'm ready to film. This setup is a lot more low-key and the results will still look good. For one, you yourself are going to notice the camera less. If you're wearing a bit of a heavier shirt like a hoodie or something like that, you're actually not even going to feel that you're wearing a camera at all, because it's a lot lighter on your chest compared to your head. And with the DJI Osmo Nano like this, I'm actually walking around forgetting that I'm filming because it's just that light. It's also going to be less distracting to other people because it's in a much less noticeable spot compared to on your forehead. And what I like to do, especially when I'm traveling as a tourist or something like that, is I like to wear the magnetic necklace all of the time below my shirt, but then when I'm not using the camera I can remove it and I can just walk around as a completely normal tourist. Nobody's going to notice that I'm even trying to film anything. I can just be a completely normal guy, completely normal tourist, and then when I'm seeing something interesting, something I want to film, I have the camera in the pocket of my jacket or of my pants, and then I can just pull it out, attach it to the necklace and be ready to film right away. I loved using the setup in Prague. That was the first full POV photography video I shot on this camera, and that was just what I was doing the entire time. I was walking around just completely normal, and then when I was seeing something interesting I just clipped the camera on and I was ready to film right away, and I got some of my favorite shots I've ever gotten, one of my favorite videos I've ever made, if not the favorite, so that was just really amazing. This is a great setup if you're more introverted or socially awkward, but you still want to share your experiences and your art, and you still want to make videos that are good and immersive. But there are some things to be careful about. Once again, make sure not to cover the lens on accident. If you're wearing a jacket or a scarf or something like that, be careful not to let it ruin your shot. It's best to wear the necklace below the outermost layer of clothing you're wearing, so I wouldn't recommend something like this where it's possible that the jacket might close above your lens, something like this. What I like to do when I'm wearing clothing like this is use my camera backpack, which I'm gonna need anyways to do photography, and then wear my backpack and use this kind of chest strap right here to just pin down all of my clothing so it doesn't move around, so it doesn't move above the lens on accident. Or of course you can just close your jacket and then wear the camera the outside of your jacket. Depending on what you're wearing, if you're wearing something like a super thick winter jacket with thick buttons and stuff like this, this might not work because the magnet might not be strong enough to hold the camera through all of that stuff. But with a jacket like this, it's also going to work. Just be careful that your lens doesn't get covered up. Also be careful when using a magnetic lav mic, because you might experience what I'm experiencing here, where the microphone attaches to the magnetic necklace. That does happen. That's why I'm wearing the microphone off to the side like this, so it does attach on accident because some stuff like this happens. Be careful. And another possible downside is the fact that I usually like to shoot with neck straps, so stuff like this. But you can see the camera's right here and the neck strap is right here. Oftentimes the neck strap is going to appear in your image when you're doing photography like this, or this is a film camera, but if you have a digital camera with a screen and you're holding it out like this to see the screen, then oftentimes the neck strap is going to be in your image. So for sure, make sure not to wear neck straps that are too thick, so at least they don't take up too much of the image. But in general, I think that was one of the things that I disliked about the video I made in Prague, that there was just so many shots where the neck strap was visible. It wasn't terrible, you could still see everything you're meant to see, but I think if I use this setup in future, I would use something like a wrist strap like this, so you can attach the camera to my wrist, and this is not going to be like right in the field of view of my camera when I'm shooting like this. So that's what I would recommend using when using the camera on your chest. Don't use neck straps. Use wrist straps like this. It's just going to be less distracting in your image. Which I kind of hate because I love using neck straps, but what can you do? So this might be the stealthiest and easiest to use way to mount this camera. But I do have one more contender. Using a cold shoe mount like this, you can mount the camera right onto your photography camera, like this. The action camera will now automatically record everything you point your camera at, so anything you take a picture of will be included in your video. It requires no additional effort, you're basically using two cameras in one, and I would argue it's also fairly sneaky. Of course you are going to see the camera, but there's a bigger camera here anyway, so why would it bother you? And also this might be some sort of attachment, you don't know. In general, I don't use this setup as much as the other two. I wouldn't film an entire video like this. I don't think the results are as visually interesting, but if you're looking for a low effort way to produce videos like this, then this is for sure it, because you don't have to pay any attention to your video camera at all. It's just automatically going to record everything you're going to need for your video. I personally prefer using this cold shoe mount every now and then, more as a special effect in my videos rather than the main recording technique. I also use it in situations where I just really don't want to have to pay any attention to the video, so I can focus fully on photography. Sometimes I also use this setup, and you can see in, for example, in the video from Prague, you can see some shots where I have the camera mounted on my chest and you can still see this attachment on my camera. The reason for that is I might be using this setup when I'm filming a video from my chest like this, but I'm unsure if it's going to catch the thing I'm photographing. Sometimes when I'm doing photography, I might be holding camera up like this, pointing it down like this, or shooting over a wall or something like this, and I don't know if this camera would catch that type of angle. So in that situation, I can super quickly just switch the camera over onto my photography camera and then just draw in a shot like this to make sure that everything is in my video, and then put it back on my chest. So you can just use those two mounts kind of interchangeably depending on what you need in your situation. So in this type of setup with this camera, you wouldn't actually see any of the camera in the video footage, but what I like to do every now and then is use the setup, tilt the camera down somewhat, and use a camera with a longer lens like my Sony ZV-10 with the bigger zoom lens, and then have the lens included in my video. Again, I wouldn't film an entire video like this, mainly because of how close the lens is going to be to your camera. It's not going to be fully sharp in the shot, and it might look kind of weird, but I think it's still fine for kind of a special effect every now and then, kind of like POV. You are the camera I'm shooting with. You can see how I work the lens, you can see how I take the pictures. I think it's just kind of fun and immersive, and I like throwing it in every now and then as an effect, but I wouldn't overuse it. And another downside of using the setup you can see right here in this footage. Basically, you're not going to hold your camera completely stable, so you have the choice of either using image stabilization in your video to get a nice and smooth video, but then the lens is going to bounce up and down in your video because it's not stabilized, but the video is. The alternative is not to use any image stabilization, so your lens doesn't make any unnatural movements in your video, but then your entire video is going to be shaky and it doesn't look too great. Which option you prefer kind of comes down to personal preference, but I wouldn't recommend using this setup for longer than like 10 seconds at a time. Another fun effect that I wouldn't use too often, but it's fun to use every now and then, is have the camera mounted onto your photography camera facing you. So you can record yourself from the perspective of your camera taking the pictures. Wouldn't work with a camera like this where I have to use the viewfinder, but on a digital camera where I can shoot with the screen kind of like this, it can look kind of fun just for your viewers to kind of, again, see you doing what you're doing. Once again, there is downsides, and the main downside is just that your camera is going to feel a bit more off balance, a bit more clunky to use. On this camera I can reach all of the dials completely fine, but something like looking through the viewfinder might be annoying if you might touch the mount or the camera. It's also just going to be a bit top heavy because there's more weight on top of the camera than there usually is. For me personally, using heavier, bigger cameras with bigger zoom lenses, oftentimes I don't feel it at all. Like on this camera, I don't feel it at all because it's super heavy anyway, so the additional weight doesn't really change anything about how this camera feels to operate. But if you're the type of person who likes shooting on something like a Fujifilm X100 or like a Q camera or something like this, one of those lightweight small cameras, then you might feel annoyed by the additional stuff you're putting on your camera that might throw off your shooting experience. So those are the mounts that I use to film my POV photography videos with the DJI Osmo Nano. Now, before we get into the settings I use on the camera itself, let's get into some more general tips how you can get the best results. Let's talk about audio. The internal microphone on the DJI Osmo Nano is pretty good, and it's going to be good on pretty much all of those modern vlogging centric action cams. Probably, I don't know. As I said, I haven't tried any of the other ones, but I think that's the case. Especially when you're using the camera on your chest, you can see it's positioned pretty much exactly where I would otherwise have a microphone. So it's in a great position to pick up my voice very well and to have good audio quality in my videos. I did an audio test with the internal microphone of the DJI Osmo Nano. This footage is like from autumn last year, like October, so it's pretty old, but you can still have a look to see what the microphone sounds like. Just to test, how would the sound? No microphone, just this thing there in front of me. I heard that the sound of the built-in microphone is supposed to be pretty good actually. I guess it would be nice if I didn't have to buy another microphone. I probably would. If I would use this for vlogging, I would buy one of those DJI microphones, but just to test. And I think when this thing is sitting on my chest like this, so close to my mouth anyways, I assume the sound would be pretty good there. Wait a minute, who's there? Who are you? The only issue I've had when using the internal microphone on the DJI Osmo Nano was when recording in windy environments where things like this might happen. The autumn colors haven't fully come in yet. I'm also just scouting locations today that I might shoot a few days from now when the colors are better. There is a wind noise reduction feature in the camera, and that is going to help, but what I prefer to do, and the thing that's going to give you the most consistent results, is just use an external microphone. This is the DJI Mic Mini, which is the one I'm using, and you can just attach a windscreen like this, and that's going to get rid of that issue right in the microphone, give you the most consistent results without the need for any computational features or editing, and the audio quality is going to be good. That's the microphone I'm using in all of my videos I'm posting here on the channel. And another benefit of using an external microphone like this is if you ever want to detach the camera from your body to kind of vlog yourself like this, or if you ever want to set it down somewhere or attach it somewhere magnetically, walk away from the camera and then talk into it like this, then the audio quality is going to be the same no matter how far the camera is away from you. Of course, those microphones have a limited range, so be aware of that, but you still can kind of move the camera around away from your mouth and still have consistent audio results, which of course wouldn't be the case when using an internal microphone. But there is one downside, which is this. As I said, I like having the detachable vision dock to be able to check my framing while I'm filming and just have my camera sitting right there on my monitor, and now you can see this is what I would be recording and I have the microphone attached. Now let's see what would happen if I start the recording. The image goes away. So you will no longer be able to view what you're recording when you're filming with an external microphone like this, a Bluetooth microphone. And that's a little annoying. Just make sure to check if everything's lined up and if everything looks good before starting to film. And then you can't see the screen while you're filming. That is one downside. When you have the vision dock attached, by the way, for example, if I want to vlog myself like this and I want to have the screen to see if I'm in the frame, then it works. Then you can see everything. Then you can check your footage while you're filming. That is, as long as the vision dock is physically attached to the camera, then it works fine. The next tip is bring a second video camera. This is optional. You can ignore this tip if you want to film purely a POV video without any sort of B-roll shots or talking head shots or anything like that. But even bringing something like your smartphone is going to improve the quality of your videos. Of course, if you're doing digital photography with a digital camera that's able to shoot video, then that's just going to be the camera. The reason for that is the lens on these action cameras is going to be very wide. You need a very wide angle lens for POV videos to work, for everything to be included in your frame. It's good that these cameras have a very wide lens, otherwise these POV videos wouldn't work out, but there is some downsides to that. Like if you want to have a shot like this where you're just in front of the camera talking, I usually like to include a shot like this even in my POV videos where I'm just kind of making an intro like this or talking about what am I doing. And with the Osmo Nano, if I set this down on a tripod and even take like 4 steps back, I'm so small in the frame, it's just not going to look pretty. Even if you want to have something like a bit of a blurry background when I'm coming closer to the camera, that's not going to work on an action camera. If you want to have B-roll of the landscape you're in, if you want to have B-roll of the food you're eating, stuff like that just isn't going to look very pretty on a lens that's this wide. So what I always always recommend doing, and what I always do, is just bring another video camera with something like a 35mm lens, a 50mm lens, even something like your smartphone is going to work, just to have some pretty B-roll shots or some pretty talking head shots like this that just look a bit more artistic compared to the ultra wide angle video out of your action camera that you're using for the POV shots. I think it just levels up your videos a bit. For example, I just wouldn't want to film a shot like this on the Osmo Nano. It just wouldn't look as pretty. And to make a video like this where I'm in my room talking about something and then you're seeing the POV footage, it's just good to have both cameras, both the action camera for the POV videos you're seeing in this video, as well as my Sony ZV-E10 for just this shot right here. And that's always, I think, a good thing to have, using two cameras and then deciding, do I want the ultra wide angle lens for POV shots, or do I want to have more of a normal lens? What I have as, what focal length are we at here? 30mm, just something a bit nicer like this. Okay, so since I've been getting a bunch of comments here on my POV photography videos asking about which settings I use on my DJI Osmo Nano, let me just talk you through all of my settings real quick. So on the DJI Osmo Nano, I film in 4K 25 frames per second in the 4:3 aspect ratio. The reason for that I'm going to tell you soon. I use the rock steady image stabilization, and all of the videos you're seeing here in this video and on my channel have been shot with the standard D-warp setting. So that's going to give me a 15mm focal length, and that's just going to look a bit more natural, not like a fisheye lens, not like some crazy ultra wide lens. It's not going to look warped in any way, it's just going to give a more natural, pleasant look. In a somewhat recent software update, which I think has been out since a while now, but I downloaded it last week, DJI have added the natural wide setting, which is going to give you a 13mm field of view at the expense of the image looking a bit more warped, but it still looks pleasant enough and it doesn't go crazy in the corners or anything like that. As I said, I haven't used that setting in any of my videos here on the channel, but I do want to experiment with it in the future. But if you want to get the exact same look as you see in my videos, then standard D-warp is what I use. But I do want to experiment with the wider field of view in the future. I think I have some ideas where that might work, but I haven't tested any of that stuff yet. I don't use the automatic in-camera horizon balancing because it isn't available in 4K 4:3, but even if it was available, I wouldn't use it because I prefer to do that stuff in editing myself. Using the automatic horizon balancing is going to crop into your image, and I prefer to be able to crop into it in editing myself. If the horizon isn't balanced, I can always crop into the image myself in editing and then adjust the horizon if it's necessary, but I prefer to be able to do that myself and to record the wider field of view while I'm shooting. And since I film my videos in 4K but upload them in 1440p, I have the kind of resolution necessary to do that and still have good image quality. But I do prefer to do that myself because there's certain shots where I end up the horizon isn't balanced, but if I do crop in, then some things that I want to be in my shot won't be included anymore, so I may consciously choose to leave the horizon off balance in favor of having everything in the shot. And I like being able to make that sort of decisions myself in editing rather than having the camera crop in while I'm shooting and then there's something that's not in my video that I wanted to be included. So why do I shoot in 4:3 aspect ratio? Well, the reason for that is when I'm doing photography, especially with a digital camera with a screen, sometimes I might hold it a bit higher, I might hold it a bit lower, especially when I want to adjust the settings or stuff like this, and I want all of that to be included in my video. So having the taller frame gives me the ability to go in editing and then adjust my framing to make sure the camera is always in the shot, even if I hold it a bit lower to adjust my settings, or if I hold it a bit higher to get like a shot from above like this, I can just adjust the framing in editing, make sure everything is included. And I like being able once again to do that myself in editing. That's why I'm shooting in 4:3 aspect ratio, and then I crop it to a 16:9 frame in editing, so I can make sure that everything I want to be included in the shot is included. Some additional settings: I use the standard bitrate, I shoot in 10-bit D-Log-M for some extra room in color grading later in the edit, and for a bit of extra stealth when shooting in public, I have muted any noises the camera might make, as well as there is an LED light on the camera, which I can just show you if I enable it and start my recording. You should be able to see this LED light right here blinking, and I have that turned off as well, so really you can't see if I'm recording a video or not. You can just disable that in the settings. I use auto exposure, I use auto white balance, I use no glamour effects, I don't use endurance modes, and so far I never really had any issues with the battery life. And the stabilization scenario is set to daily, whatever that means. Also, I do know that there is ND filters for the DJI Osmo Nano. I never bought any of them, I never used any of them, and I wouldn't recommend using them. The reason for that is I'm using an ND filter on this camera right now, and the point of that is to slow down my shutter speed so there is motion blur when I'm moving. Many people, including myself, prefer to have a bit of motion blur in their videos. It just makes the videos look more natural and I guess a bit more artistic, but I wouldn't recommend using ND filters to slow down your shutter speed on your action camera, because even when I was shooting in something like a forest or a bit later in the evening when there's less light and the shutter speed gets slowed down, it doesn't look natural, it doesn't look artistic, it just looks blurry. I never liked the kind of footage I get with slow shutter speeds. Of course, when shooting with less light, like when I'm shooting in a forest, that's just automatically going to happen. There isn't anything I can do about it. But that's why I would never purposefully slow down my shutter speed with ND filters when shooting in broad daylight, because I wouldn't want to have motion blur. It just ends up looking soft and blurry and not really natural, especially because this camera, especially if it's sitting on your head, is going to move around a lot, and it just ends up looking kind of ugly in my opinion. I wouldn't use that. I guess if you want to have blur, then you can get it. And the last tip is be aware of the potential weaknesses of your camera. You're going to be working with very small cameras that are very powerful, but with that there's some common downsides you might experience. Things like low battery life, overheating, stuff like that. Just research the camera you're using, be aware of what might go wrong. The Osmo Nano does have a bit of a reputation of overheating. It has never overheated for me so far, but to be fair, I've also only been using it in autumn and winter, so it's never been super hot outside. Maybe I will start having problems when I'm shooting in summer. Let's see, I will keep you updated. But things like that, it's good to research what might go wrong and to treat your camera accordingly. So what I do, I don't shoot in the most demanding record modes. I don't shoot 60 FPS because I don't do slow-mo footage anyway, so I always shoot in 25. That's going to be easier on the camera. I don't shoot in high bitrate because I'm uploading my videos to YouTube anyways, which is going to reduce the bitrate through encoding and all of that stuff anyways, so it doesn't matter. If you're shooting POV videos to upload to TikTok or something like that, you don't need 4K 60 FPS highest bitrate. So just be aware of what might cause your camera to fail, to overheat, to stop recording, to run out of battery, and just be a bit more careful and be realistic with what type of video quality you actually need. And what I personally do is just when I'm filming a POV video, I don't have my camera running all of the time because there's not something interesting happening all of the time. I just have my camera sitting here, I have my record button right here. If there's something interesting happening, I'm recording. If there's nothing, I stop the recording. I might even turn my camera off in between shots if I know that there's nothing interesting going on. And that way you can conserve battery life. Like I shot entire days in Prague without charging the cameras once, and it was completely fine because I just turned off the camera when I wasn't recording. I never had any overheating issues because the camera overheats at like 12 plus minutes, I think, like 20 minutes depending on the record mode, and I never record for longer than 10 minutes because once I've been recording for 10 minutes, probably all of the interesting stuff I want to record is recorded, and also my videos are like maximum of 30 minutes long, so I don't need 3 hours of video footage for one video. So just be aware of what might go wrong and then be a bit more careful in using your camera. Do you actually need the highest settings? Do you actually need to have the camera running all of the time? Are you actually going to make slow-mo footage or not? Just kind of treat the camera carefully. And like one thing that I saw, so when I first bought the Osmo Nano and when I've shot my first video on this camera, I didn't even know that overheating was an issue because it never overheated in the entire time, like shooting full days, a full video in Prague, no problems at all. And then I started getting comments talking about, oh, this camera overheats so much, and I never had any overheating issues. And to be fair, I think there might be some faulty manufacturing going on way at the beginning when this camera was first released. It seems like maybe some cameras overheated faster than others, but I also went online, looked at overheating tests, and people are running like overheating tests, filming an indoor shot like this, 4K 60 frames per second for like 10 minutes plus. What are you even filming? Like, when is that even a thing you're doing? You're gonna have airflow because you use that camera outside, and you don't need the 60 frames for a talking headshot like this, so just be realistic, right? Right, well, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. I hope this video was a little bit useful for you. If it wasn't, I hope you at least had fun watching some of my recent photography trips. I hope you liked the visuals, I hope you liked the photos, and if you did, once again, subscribe to the channel and watch my other videos. There's a lot more to come. And if you want to start shooting POV photography videos yourself, I hope I was able to kind of help you out a little bit. I'm not claiming to be the best at it or to have the most knowledge, especially since I only really started seriously doing it since October of last year, so I've only been at this for a few months now. But I do think I have some useful tips to share, and if you have any additional questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. And in general, if you liked what you were seeing in this video, if you liked what you're seeing on my channel, then I've explained everything of how I make those videos, and you can make them yourself now. Go ahead. So I guess there's nothing left to do other than have my outro here. I'm gonna have the video from Prague up here, and just another POV photography video that I've shot recently down here. And I guess the only thing that's left for me to do is wish you good luck in shooting the videos you're trying to shoot. And I'm going to see you in my next video very soon. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.